Hello guys, in our previous lesson we discussed HTML table. In this lesson we are going to discuss HTML forms. What are forms? Forms are the HTML is a HTML tag which gives user the opportunity to input data. Yes. So most of the time you visit a website whereby you'll be given opportunity to comment, such as something like Facebook or Instagram, be given an opportunity to comment on a post, be given an opportunity to input your data, such as your username, your password. All these things is done using form. Yes. And under forms, we have different kind of tags. We have input tag, we have input tag, we have we have input tag, we have text area tag. This text area tag is mostly used in comment form. We have different kind of tag which we are going to look at one by one. So let's look at input tag. So whenever you want to start a form, let's talk about how to initiate a form in your HTML page. Let's say you want to create a form which collects user data such as their username and their password. Yes, to create a form, you start with what we call form attribute. I mean form tag. Yes, form tag. Then something like this form. You start with form tag, and that is you want to tell the page that this is a form. Then you close the form tag. So within the form tag, all your form elements such as input, text area, radio buttons, check boxes, everything will live within the form tag. So now let's create a form using form tag. Then within the form tag, let's specify input tag. So input type. So most of the time you'll be using input tag within the form. Input type text. So now in form, there is there is something we call form attributes. Yes, form attributes. We have a lot of attributes such as actions, method, then input type, which is text, the name of the form, and so on and so forth. So now we start with a form attribute called action. Yes, that is where we want the form to be to work, or where you want to apply the form. Let's say form action. Let's say home.php. Home.php. Though we don't have home.php yet, we explain more about that in when we get to backend class. So form action, this action, that is where you want the whenever you click a submit button, where we want the actions to take effect, or where we want to manipulate those data. So we talk more about that. That is within the scope of it's outside the scope of this tutorial. So we talk about that when we move on to backend class. So form action, we are talking about form attributes here. Action is an example of HTML attribute. So specify form action. Then after the form action, we specify the method. Method is also another HTML attribute. Very, very important. Whenever you are declaring a form, it's very important to specify the method of that form. So method can come in two ways, either post or get. We have different kind of method. So we talk about method as well when you move on to the backend class. Is very, very, very important. This method is very important. The common method which we have, I will outline the common method which we have if you want to make some extra research about it yourself. So I will outline those method, the set of method you have. You have post method, we have get method, we have post method, we have get method, we have put, we have delete. So you can search for more method if you want to make research on method. You can search or for more on this set of method, which is post, get, put, and delete. Whenever you want to create a CRUD operation, yes, if you have heard about it before, CRUD operation, maybe you want to delete a data from a database, or maybe you want to or maybe you want to add a data, or you want to update. When you want to update a data, you use put, and post, get, and so on and so forth. So now the method post is very, very important when you are working with form. Method is very important. You have to specify the method. Either the form is trying to get a post, or you want to maybe the form is trying to get or to post or to put or to delete. So now that is that on HTML form attribute. That's a common HTML form attribute. We also have enc type form attribute. Enc type. Maybe you want to specify the type of file that you want to post. Maybe let's say it's it's a multimedia file. You see end type multi-part and so on and so forth. That's is outside the scope of this tutorial, but I have to explain everything. So every information you need to understand form better. That's why I decided all to explain all those form attributes. So now that is that for form attributes. That those attributes are for form tags. You also have attribute for input. Let's say you are using input form, input type. So whenever you want to use input type within your form, the input will have an attribute called type. It will always have attribute called type. Either the type is text, or the type is password, or the type is email. You have to specify it there. Then after the type, we have placeholder. That is the default text that will be within the form. Placeholder. Let's say your first name. Please enter your first name. Enter your first name as a placeholder. Enter your first name. Your first name. Enter your first name. Then the form name, that is very, very important. When you want to access the form using backend technology, you have to specify the name. It's the name that is very, very important, that will be used to select that particular input and manipulate it using backend programming language. So name, you specify the name. Let's say the name is you can specify the name as first name. So whenever you want to work on this form, whenever you want to work on this particular input or particular data, we are going to specify it using the name. So now we have different kind of input type, which I'm going to walk us through. So now this is the input type. So now let me create another type called submit. Submit. Let me quickly create that. Input type. Input type. That is input type is equal to submit. This one is used when we want to submit the form. Yes. So this submit button. I see submit. Input type submit. Then value name is equal to submit. Name is equal to submit. Submit. So now let's save and run this in the browser. So after saving and running in the browser, after showing the results, we are going to talk more about different type of inputs. Different type of input. I told you we'll be talking about HTML. We'll be talking about input type in more details. So now let's run it and let's see how it looks in the browser. Open file. Let's see how it looks in the browser. Where's the file? Input.html. Now let's run it. I'm supposed to save this as form.html, but I decided to save it as input.html. But let's see how it runs how it looks in the browser. Can you see? Now it give you opportunity to input data. Enter your first name. My first name is Lukman. I will enter the name. But before that, anything you write in the placeholder, there's a placeholder attribute which I specified in the input. Anything you write in the placeholder will be shown. Can you see? Shown. Very faint text shown, like enter your first name. Yes, the space order which I specified here, enter your first name. Then the text input is shown very, very faint. Can you see that? Enter your first name. Then whatever you typed will be in the input. And whenever you want to, so whatever you type on these inputs will be accessed using the input, using the name, the data name, which we specify the name as first name. Yes, the name, whenever you want to access it in the backend or you want to manipulate it, you are going to use the name attributes. So that's why you should almost give your form name attributes. So now that is that. Now let's discuss other input. Most of the time you'll be using this input type, mm, aside text. You'll be using text most of the time. But aside text, there are some input type that you have to get yourself familiar with. That is, you have to learn, you have to know, you have to get yourself familiar with, so that you'll be using it in form. Example is radio. Input type, we have another input type called radio. Input type is equal to radio. What is the function of this radio? Let's say radio is mostly used most of the time. Maybe let's say whenever you want to create a gender, yes, you want to create input for gender, and you want to specify the gender. Input type radio, then the name. Let's say the name is equal to gender. You see what I'm talking about now? Name is equal to gender. You come across all this, you come across this kind of thing in most websites, but maybe you don't take note of it. Input name, gender, then the name gender, then let's say the value is equal to male. I specify the value as male. So if you are male, then you pick the male. If you are female, then you pick the female. Then input type, then checked. There's also whenever you are using input type radio or checkbox, you have to pick either one of the value you created as checked. So that checked is an HTML form attribute checked. So by default, the male will be checked. So you can now decide to pick any other one, maybe the female. If you are female, you uncheck the male and you pick the female. So now input type radio. You see what I'm talking about now? You see how it's going to display input type radio, then the name is equal to gender, the form name is equal to gender, the form name is equal to gender, then the value is equal to female, then the value is equal to female. So this one we give it unchecked by default. We don't use checked attribute because we have already checked the male. So now I can just use label here before the radio. I can use label, that is to tell us that this one is the label is used to to explain the particular form. What is it doing? So the label is gender. Yes, the label is gender. So now let me give this one. Okay, let me highlight this submit button. Let me cut it. I don't want the submit to show before the radio input. So now let me highlight it. Let me cut the submit button and let me paste it downward there. Let me paste it downward at the last one. So the submit button will appear last in the input. So now what next? So now let me save. You see what I'm talking about now? So after the radio button, let me use line break so that I'll be able to the submit button will be able to show in in a separate line. So now let's reload once again. Can you see? We have the gender as shown. Most of the time, you'll be seeing something like this. Either you are a male, you pick male. Either you are a female, automatically the male is there. Either you are a female, you pick female. So now, there's also another thing which I want to add, which I think is very, very important. Let me specify the 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 label, which is, let me use span here. I won't use label. Let me use span here. So the span is male. You can use label, but here I'm using span so that the span is male. Then another one, let me specify the span class. I've explained span when we are talking about basic of HTML. So you can check towards that as well, the basis of HTML tutorial. So male, gender, male or female. You see what I'm talking about now? By default, the male is checked, but if you are a female, you can check that female. So now, can you see gender? Male, if you are male, you check the male. If you are a female, check the female. So pick any of these. Can you see? Can you see what I'm talking about? So that is another input type. Input type is radio. Whenever you want to specify, if you want to specify gender, then you use radio button. You also have checked. You also have select. Let's use select. You have select. You have select. Yes, select name. Let's say select name is, let's say, department. This select is used for different kind of, to specify different kind of options. So within that options, now pick the one that, or you pick the category that you falls in. Let's say department. So within the select tag, you are going to use option. Yes, you are going to use option. So option, let's say this one, this department is science. Let's say this department is science. Then another option, you specify another option. Let's say this one is commercial. Commercial. You also specify another option, which is, let's say, art. You can specify another option for art. Option. Another option for art. Option for art, then art, to specify those options. So within the options, in our select, you are going to pick one. You are allowed to pick one in select, only one value. So within our option, you are going to specify values for different option, or else now we have empty values for all those options we specify. So you have to specify the value. There is an attribute called value. You have to specify that value within the option tag. So this one, the value is science. So if you pick this one, if you pick this option as science, if you pick the science option, then the value will be science. If you pick commercial option, the value will be commercial. If you pick art, the value will be art. So you have to specify different value for each option. You have to specify different value for each option. So I specify art for this. So now let's save and let's see how select forms looks like, or select. So now you see what I'm talking about now. Most of the time, be familiar. You have seen something like that, but you don't take notice. This is select. Can you see? Now it brings science. It brings option for science. It brings options for commercial. It brings options for art. You pick any of these. That's the value you are going to pick. The value will be commercial. If you pick science, the value will be science. If you pick art, the value is art. So that is that on select form. You can use any of these, you- depending on what you want to achieve. So you also have check box. You also have input check box. Input check box. Now, most of the time you'll be seeing check box, like let's say you agree to our terms and conditions or something like that. Most of the time you come across that in some websites. To check box, you come across check box. Let's say so there are some times whereby they will ask you to read terms and conditions. So after reading the terms and conditions, be given check box to agree to our. Let's say, do you agree to the terms and conditions? So you click the check box which says I agree. So this is most of the time the check box input type is mostly used. Input type, whenever you want to create a checkbox, you specify it, input type, checkbox, then the value. Input type, checkbox, the value, then let's say agree. Let's say, do you agree to our this so things, like something like that. So whenever you click the checkbox which is agree, then the checkbox is going to be checked. So now agree. So do you agree to agree to our terms and condition, terms and condition. So you see how it's going to display now. Just going to check the checkbox. So that's all. So let me specify this one within span. Let me specify this one within span tag. So now let's save and run the and reload our page. You see how the checkbox, you see, agree to our terms and conditions. I just click and I've checked it. That is that unchecked box. So you see now that I've agreed to our terms and conditions. You just click the check box. I can uncheck it. I will check it again. So that's how checked box works. Most of the time, they use checked box input to achieve something like this. Most of the time, you'll be seeing something like this in most websites. Whenever you read their terms and conditions, they will now ask you to agree. When you now click on this box, it will now be checked. So they use checked box input type to do something like that. So that is that on the different kind of input we have. So we also have another one called input type email. So that now here I will jump back to the first one which we specified here, input type text. So within the input type text, we also have another different kind of input aside from text. You can specify an input and name it type password. You can name it type password. Password is different from text. So if you use text, if you use input type text in the case of password, that is you are going you your data which you want to input there is at risk because it won't be encrypted. But if you use input type password, then the data will be encrypted. Input type password, then give it a name of password so that whenever the backend language is trying to manipulate the data, it's going to use the name, the name. I will specify the name as password in short form, the name, and then placeholder, enter your password. You see what I'm talking about now? It's going to display over there. Placeholder, enter your password, enter your password. Then let me save. Enter your password. Then let me save. Let me give it line break so that another is going to appear in different lines. So now let's save and reload. You're going to see what I'm talking about now. Enter your first name, enter your password. So now here, whenever you enter name, the name is going to be shown. But whenever you enter password, the password is going to be encrypted. Let's say I enter, do you see? It's encrypted. The password is not shown. The password is encrypted. So that is that on input type password. We also have another one called date. Input type date. Whenever you want to specify a date, or whenever you want to let user to specify a date on a website, then you use what we call input type date. So now save this date and let's see. You are going to see how the input type date is going to show. Do you see? This is input type date. It will give you options. It will give you this input type will give you opportunity to specify dates. Can you see? It shows dates. So that is that. These are the various kind of inputs we have. So we also have input type email. We also have input type email. Yes, this email, if you if the user is unable to put at symbol, then this input type will be validated by default and will show a message that this user has to include at or the necessary symbols used in email. So email, specify email, then placeholder, enter your email. Let's change this one to enter your email. Then let's change the name to email. So now let's run it in the browser and you are going to see what I'm talking about. You are going to see what I'm talking about. So now save. Save. Now reload. You are going to see what I'm talking about now. So you are going to see what I'm talking about now. So the email, this thing we showed, could you see? Input type email, automatically it brings in my email. Let's say I was unable to to put at and I click submit. It's going to bring me an error message. Do you see that error message? Please include an at in the email address. Can you see that? Because I've specified the input type as email. So you have to include at that that you have to include at so that it is going to be the data will be valid. You have to include your at. If you didn't input at, then it will tell you that this is not a valid data, and it's going to show error message. So I've included my art. So when I click submit, it's going to work perfectly. So that is that. So let's say you want to group all these inputs. You want to group everything. There's something we call placeholder. There's there is no, did I talk placeholder now? There is a tag which we call field set. This field set is going to group all your form elements. It's going to group it. Yes, field sets. Field set. Within the field set, you can specify the legend. That is the first. The legend just means the first input, the first input which appears. You can specify legend. So this input, this field set is very very useful whenever you want to group forms. Let's say you have different kind of forms now. You want to create like two to three forms. You want to create like two to three forms. Like the first form, you want to create it for maybe let's say your personal data. And the second form, you want to create outside your personal data, you want to create maybe your educational background. You want user to input their educational background or all this or anything about their education. And you create another form, another set of form, like let's say their aside their education, let's say their achievement. You create another form like that. So you are going to use field set. Within the field set, we have a box like this, so a surrounded thin box, which shows that this is a particular set of form. You can create another one to have its own box. So whenever you use field set, this box, can you see the box is specified. That is, this tells us that this is a particular set of form. You can also create another one, which we also specify another box, that this is also another set of forms. Now let me copy these ones which we created, and these field sets, I will copy from these field sets. I want to show you the essence of field sets now. You see that the forms, maybe you have more than one or two forms within a page. The form is going to be specified. The form is going to be subcategorized within different uh, within different it's going to be subcategorized into different sections. Sorry. So now let me paste this. Let's say the first form it tells about your personal life. Another form which tells about your educational background. Let's say this one is education. So now we change it. I'll remove the radio button, and I remove the radio button and the checkbox. So let me remove the radio button which talks about the gender. So now the date. Let me say this one is education. Input your input. I'll change this first name to name like university, university, university. That is, you enter your university or college, then enter your university. I'll change this first name as enter your university, university. So enter your email. Okay, let's leave the email because email is a generalized input which is mostly applied. So enter your password. Let's change this password as enter your enter your program. Enter your program. Let's change this one from input type password. The program, program is text. I'm not using the input type as password anymore. You change it to text, then the date, then the submit. Let's remove the submit. Let's remove the submit here. Let's remove the submit, and let's run it. Let's leave that submit for now, and let's run this for the sake of this tutorial to explain what more about what you are talking about. Do you see? We have another set of field sets which talks about your education. Enter your university, enter your email, enter your program, enter your department, then the checkbox, and so on and so forth. So that is that on HTML form. An HTML form is very, very important concept, which as a programmer or web developer, you have to get yourself familiar with. You have to know it. Yes, it's something you have to know. So I think I've explained, I've demystified everything you need to work on HTML forms. So you create that HTML forms. The HTML form is a section whereby you give your users or visitors on your website the ability to input their data, maybe their personal data or any other data you specified in your website. So that is that on HTML form. Thank you very much.